All right, welcome everyone to this week's XPM webinar. We are going to be talking today about successful Atlassian cloud migration. XPM does Atlassian webinars on a weekly basis, usually every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So if this is your first time attending one of our webinars, just know that we do this on a weekly basis, and you can see our whole webinar schedule on XPM's website. We'll show you also at the end where you can see that. My name is Steve Terrelmus. I'm the practice lead for XPM. With me today is Jason Kidner. He's a solutions architect with XPM and also one of our consultants that has helped with several migrations to the cloud with several customers. What we're going to talk about today is some high-level strategic activities and information around migrating Atlassian products to the cloud. This is a dynamic activity and an element of Atlassian's ecosystem. And so every time we give this webinar, we are almost always updating the material because it's constantly changing. So we are going to, even some of the things that we put together for this webinar, we just put in within the last week or so. So we're going to try to give you the latest and greatest on what's happening around the ecosystem with migrations. We're going to give you some best practices around migrations, and we're going to talk a lot about some of the things to watch out for around migrations. So let's jump right in to our first slide. And this is really a kind of high-level overview for you all to think about as you're considering a cloud migration. There are many ways to do a cloud migration. However, depending on a number of different factors, you'll want to consider a couple of things on the timeline. The first thing is, one of the big motivating factors to the cloud migration is that Atlassian recently announced that they're going to be deprecating Server. I'm going to post in the chat right now a link to the information around that announcement. That actually happened back in October of 2020. And with that, Atlassian laid out a timeline of their deprecation of Server. If you're not familiar with all the different options around the platforms for Atlassian tools, we'll get into this throughout the webinar, but let me just kind of highlight it real quick for you. There's three of them. There's Server, Data Center, and then Cloud. And when we mean cloud, we mean the Atlassian software as a service cloud, not a hosted cloud platform like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure that you would control just like an on-prem platform. But cloud refers to a platform that Atlassian manages entirely as a software as a service. The two on-prem platforms that have existed historically are Server and Data Center. The difference there is twofold, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. But for right now, I just want to mention that Server is an older version, and Atlassian is deprecating that. So if your licenses are on Server, there's going to be a timeline where over a period of 12 months, different things are going to be dropping away until your Server license is going to be quite limited. The first thing that happened was in February 2nd of 2021, they ended the license sales of all new Server licenses. So if you actually wanted to go out and create a new instance right now, you could not do it on Server. Your only choices would be Data Center and Cloud. Next February 2nd, 2022, they are going to end the upgrades and downgrades. And what that means is that if you have a Server license that has 1,000 users and you are bumping up against that user cap after February 2nd, 2022, you will no longer be able to increase that user cap. And then the following year in 2023, Atlassian is going to end all sales of applications out of the Atlassian marketplace for Server products. And then finally in 2024, they're going to end support. The Server license is a perpetual license, which means that even after 2024, your product will still work. It's just that you will no longer get updated versions, and it will remain in the current version from that point forward. So probably 99% of the people that are on Server that are actively using the Atlassian tool will be switching off of Server either to Data Center and Cloud. And we're going to compare those in just a minute. But let me give you an idea of what we have experienced with a cloud migration timeline so that you can plan this with your operations schedules and with your budgeting cycles. If you have a small user count of maybe 100 to 500 users, we found that the migration process can take probably a period of 2 to 3 months. That's getting more efficient as Atlassian is beginning to solve some of the bumps in the road with the migration to cloud. But I would plan for about 2 to 3 months on that migration. As you expand out to the larger user instances, it can vary, but if you're around 1,000 to a 5,000 user instance, you're probably going to want to give yourself at least 12 months for the full planning, budgeting, and implementation cycle. Now, I will tell you, XPM has worked with a lot of large customers on migrating instances to cloud. We have migrated as much as a 6,000 user instance to cloud in less than 6 months. So a lot of the migration to cloud timeline depends on the dedication of the customer's staff to the process and how consolidated all the teams are with the migration. Oftentimes people will want to migrate different teams at different times, and that's what can really stretch out the timeline. If you have everybody on board with the migration all at once, it can be consolidated down. There are a few factors around this migration that really can move this needle around quite a bit that are well worth keeping in mind. First of all is the number and types of add-ons that you have. If you have a lot of add-ons, that is going to require some conversation around the migration of those add-ons, whether those add-ons exist in the cloud, whether you still need them in the cloud, and if we're going to deprecate any of those add-ons, what is the process and journey for removing those add-ons for your users? So that's one big factor to consider. Second one is going to be around what we loosely call automation and scripting. The server instance of Atlassian products has the capability to really get hacky if you have somebody that can get into the code. And so if you've done a lot of stuff with that with your server instance, it's very likely that we're going to need to look at that closely and figure out what kind of impact that's going to have on you as you migrate to cloud. Also, some of the products have some different features. For example, if you use Confluence, Confluence is a very open-ended tool and allows users to get into Confluence spaces and really build some neat things out for visualization and information in Confluence spaces. Some of those things, if people go crazy on those things, some of those need to be scrutinized to see how well they're going to transform into cloud. Third-party integrations is another one. If you're tying your Atlassian APIs to other products, that's definitely something that needs to be analyzed and taken a look at. Based on the dependency of Atlassian on those third products or vice versa, that could have an impact on the timeline as well. And then finally, multiple instances. We've migrated customers with a single instance, and we've migrated customers with multiple instances. We'll get into the concept of moving multiple on-prem instances to a federated cloud instance later on in this presentation, but that is definitely something to keep in mind. Obviously, if there's multiple instances happening, you've got different teams out there that are working in the server instance, or you may even have several teams. Some are on server, some are already on cloud, some are on data center. So there is going to have to be a consolidated collaborative effort around that entire federated migration. That could also impact the timeline. So a number of different features here, but what we really want to do with this slide is we want to give you a quick snapshot to prepare you for what you need to do when you're thinking about the cloud migration. Okay, let's go to the next slide. When we think about the migration that is happening and what Atlassian is doing with their tools, some of the tools that were in play were a little bit further behind in a migration to cloud than others. And so Atlassian has identified key tools that are in scope and tools that are out of scope. Obviously, the main products like Jira Software, Jira Core, which is now Jira Business Teams, Jira Service Management, Bitbucket, those are all going to be well in scope of migration to the cloud. Bamboo is also in scope for migration, but the world looks a little bit different on the cloud version with Bamboo. That is kind of wrapped into Bitbucket pipelines, which are a bit different than Bamboo, so that does require some more hands-on activity around that. If you've got a Bamboo Bitbucket on-premise instance, you'll want to probably reach out to a partner like XPM and talk to them about that migration. Crowd is also in scope, but keep in mind, Crowd does not exist on cloud. The comparable product on cloud for Crowd is Access, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And then Atlassian Marketplace apps. These are all in scope, but don't forget the Marketplace apps are owned by third parties, which means that you need to kind of look at the Marketplace app itself to see if the third party has built a cloud application for it. Many of the Marketplace apps have not built a similar cloud product. So you kind of have to think about what are we going to do on that migration, and that can be a case-by-case basis. Now, journey to cloud that is out of scope is going to be Fisheye and Crucible. They are going to remain on basic mode, basic maintenance mode going forward. Okay, let's keep going. What I want to talk about now is your options, your high-level options moving off of server. If you are on Bitbucket and you're thinking of moving to cloud, we're going to get to that in just a minute. But if you're currently on server, here are the options, the high-level options you have. You can either move to the Atlassian Cloud, software as a service, or you can move to the Atlassian Data Center. The Data Center platform is going to operate in the same manner as the server platform operates. From a platform standpoint, the key difference there is going to be moving from one server to like a multi-server cluster. And that's the key difference from the platform. From a product standpoint, there's not a lot of visible product differences between server and data center on the actual product side, what users see. I'm going to post in the chat right now a link to Atlassian's overview of data center, telling you a little bit about what data center is, and we're also going to post a link in the chat that talks about what data center gives you that server does not. There are some definite differences there, especially on the platform side. Now let's talk about the differences between data center and cloud, because this is the real decision point that you need to go to. The first thing that's not on this slide, but is very important to understand, is the user count. The data center user count starts at 500 users. So most of our clients that are migrating off of server onto a different platform, if they have no expectation of being near 500 users in the near future, they are typically moving directly to cloud. Cloud does have a 20,000 user limit instance cap right now. So if you have a instance that's greater than 20,000, cloud is probably not the best option for you. However, you can do multiple instances in cloud. So if you move to an enterprise federated instance, which we'll talk about in a second, you could have multiple cloud instances up to 20K users. Reliability is going to, on cloud is going to be based on tier, but the highest tier is 99.999% versus 99.95% SLA reliability. There's guaranteed uptime on that. Over on the data center side, you have a clustering option, and you also manage all the reliability yourself. So you'll notice a key difference between data center and cloud is the you managed part of it. What that means is that translates into system admin costs that are in data center that you will not incur in the cloud. So security and compliance is Atlassian managed. That is one of the things that's most dynamic. There are a lot of security and compliance evolution that is happening around the cloud instance. We won't get into a lot of that today, but we can help you navigate that if you have compliance questions and concerns. One of the things we do tell our customers is security and compliance can be managed one of two ways. It can be managed either through compliance products like SOC or other things that are out there. It can also be managed based on how you are managing the tools. For example, HIPAA is one area that Atlassian is still working on, but that can also be managed by determining what data is actually in your instances around that, and can you avoid HIPAA compliance issues by not bringing HIPAA data actually into things like Jira issue fields and things like that. Okay, governance controls is going to be also Atlassian managed versus you managed. And by governance, we're talking about the governance controls on the platform. You, of course, will still want to focus on the governance controls around how your teams are using tools and all of that. If you're interested in Atlassian enterprise governance within your organization, we have another webinar that we do on a regular basis around that. And then some apps and extendability. So that's going to be available per what's out there for DC. So there's some DC approved apps. There's also going to be some app activity going on in the cloud around Cloud Fortified and Forge. These are ways of bringing the app, third-party marketplace app ecosystem into compliance with Atlassian around security and how to improve that. Again, remember that some of the apps may not be available in cloud, so that you're definitely going to want to do an app assessment. We can talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, let's move to the next slide. This is just a quick slide that we pulled from Atlassian from Gartner, which does a lot of analytical work around the software industry. And according to Gartner, they expect that 80% of enterprise workloads will shift to the cloud by 2025. This is a major shift over the last few years. If you went back 2 or 3 years, you would see a lot of movement to cloud, but enterprise movement was still fairly limited to on-prem platforms. We are now seeing major enterprise teams moving to cloud as well. So I think this statistic is fairly accurate. So it kind of gives you an idea of where the flow is around the migration to the cloud. All right, let's move to the next slide. And I want to talk a little bit now about cloud itself. When you migrate to cloud, you have a decision to make around what are called cloud tiers. In particular, this impacts 3 of the major base products in Atlassian: software service management and Confluence. The other products at this point don't really have tier. They may in the future, but right now they do not. There are 4 tiers out there: free, standard, premium, and enterprise. Let me just walk through each of those. The free is really more of a demo tier or a personal tier. There's a lot of people that use Jira or Confluence in their personal lives. I actually do that. Many times people use the free instance for that. So if you're a business using Jira, it's not likely at all you will migrate to a free tier. The second tier is going to be standard. This is going to include the basic functionality of the tool. For example, if you are on server, you will find most of the functionality that you have on server in standard. If you are on data center, you will find that there are some applications that you have been granted in data center that are not on standard. That is going to be captured in premium, and you can see some of those additional functionality listed in premium. Let me focus on a couple of them. The big one is advanced roadmaps. That is the planning tool that Atlassian does that's directly connecting to the work that your teams are doing. So you've got a dynamic roadmap that is updating real time based on the tickets and the issues and the stories, or whatever you call them, that your teams are working on. That is dynamically updating your planning. That's the advanced roadmaps. A really powerful tool, and oftentimes the single reason why people will move to premium. Another big reason why people will move to premium is the sandbox. The sandbox is a demo instance that you get for free when you move to premium, and that's also very helpful, especially if you do not want to clutter your production instance with people testing and doing things. And now there's a number of other activities that are out there, like automation and archiving. For Confluence, you have IP allow listing. There's also another add-on for Confluence called Calendars for Confluence that comes with premium. And also the big difference between standard and premium is storage. Because you're on the cloud, you've got a storage cap for cloud, and I think it's 250 gig. When you get to premium, it is unlimited. And then finally is enterprise. Enterprise is really for those very large companies that are wanting to manage high-level user provisioning in one place, are wanting to perhaps federate multiple Atlassian instances under one user management profile, and those kinds of things. A lot more org audit functionality that's available there. You get automatically some technical advisor support directly from Atlassian with enterprise. And also there's a concept of data residency. Data residency is determining which server regions your platform lives on, and whether it's going to live on something like the US regions or international regions or something to that extent, right? There's a variation of nuances around that. Here's the key point. Data residency originally was only available on enterprise. Atlassian has recently announced they are expanding data residency to all tiers. And I believe now data residency is available automatically to all tiers that are being created. If you are currently using a cloud instance, you'll see that data residency will probably be available soon, if not with your next user or with your next renewal or user upgrade. One more link I'm going to put into the chat is going to be a quick sample of pricing for these different tiers, specifically around Jira software. I won't get into pricing a whole lot here. Obviously, as you can imagine, the pricing changes from one tier to the next. So that is something you want to consider with the benefits that you're getting in each tier. Note also, you don't have to be on the same tier for all three of these basic products. You can be on standard for Confluence and Jira Service Management, while you're also on premium for Jira software. So those are decision points that can be independent. Some of that will have an effect on one thing or another, but that's more of a case-by-case basis that we could help you work through if you have further questions on that. So that is really a big decision point you need to think about as you migrate to the cloud. So let's keep going on that. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to mention one more thing on that previous slide I forgot to mention. I mentioned earlier that the things that are in scope with moving server to cloud is Crowd, that user provisioning single sign-on management tool. That is now replaced by Access when you move to the cloud. And Access is a cost add-on for free, standard, and premium, but it comes free with the enterprise cloud tier. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, let's keep going to the next slide. And speaking of Access, this is a quick high-level overview of what you get with Access. You've got your SAML single sign-on, user deprovisioning and provisioning. This is the ability to connect your provisioning to an Active Directory. You've got two-factor authentication that you can use. Also, Access is really going to be the tool that's going to help you manage user provisioning in a central place. As people move to cloud, it becomes more and more important to manage users in a central place, especially if you have multiple instances, right? You're federating those instances. A lot of that needs to be governed in a central user provisioning place, and that's what Access can do for you. It gives you all the tools to see all the users, what different instances users are on, which users are active, which users are not active, and that sort of thing. You also have CASB integration and also organizational audit logs that are available with Atlassian Access. And we're probably going to mention this later, but just one big key point around Atlassian Access is your identification with Atlassian on the cloud changes when you move from server to cloud or data center from cloud. In server and data center, Atlassian knows you by your username. That's kind of like the core root foundational element of your user. When you move to cloud, that changes to your email address. And that's why Access is so important for user provisioning, because once you set up Access, your user provisioning team is going to be able to see all of the users that have that domain email address and all the different instances that they're involved in. So it's a lot of really good organizational management there. Okay, let's move on. Real quick, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Expium. That's who we are. Why is it that Expium's talking to you today instead of Atlassian? Well, as you may know, Atlassian's been in the market for a long time. They've got about 300,000 customers around the world. But one of the things they've done uniquely from the very beginning is depend very heavily on a partner network. There are about 500 partners around the world, and those partners are tiered. Platinum Solutions Partner is the highest level partner. You have to go through several hurdles in order to achieve that. There's only 20 Platinum Solution Partners in the country. Expium is one of them. As a Platinum Solution Partner, we can basically do anything you need with your Atlassian activity. And if you reached out to Atlassian and said, hey, we need some training, or we need some help implementing, or we need some help with a cloud migration, they will likely turn around and connect you with a partner, because Atlassian depends very heavily on their partner base. Here are some of the things that Expium can do. One of our major core competencies is training. We have some of the best training out there in the marketplace. Our Jira Bootcamp is unprecedented. If you're interested in training, check out our website. Also consulting, whether you are doing a cloud migration or you're going into scaled agile and you want to scale into Jira Align, or you want to move into a full ITSM software suite, we can help you with consulting on all of that, as well as full implementation of the tools, whether you're starting from scratch or you're trying to wipe the table and start over again, or you're just trying to clean up what you're doing. We can help you with the full configuration of those tools. And also support. If you guys need help with things, whether it is just meeting with an expert on a regular basis to help overcome hurdles, or actually have an expert be a hands-on admin for you in your tool, we can provide that support for you. XPM is also related to a company that is our sister company. It's actually the company we grew out of. The name of that company is Oasis Digital, and they are a full stack software development company. So we have been able to do some really neat, unique customization of Atlassian tools and interfaces with other tools. If that is something you're looking for, if you're looking for better visualization, kind of a visualization wrapper or skin on top of your Atlassian tools, we can help out with that as well. Finally, licensing. As a Platinum Solutions partner, we are able to, license anything that you need. And one thing I do try to tell people is that Atlassian depends heavily on their partners, and that goes true with licensing as well. So more often than not, a Platinum Solutions partner like XPM can get you a better price on your licensing than if you're working directly with Atlassian. So if you have any questions on that, let me know or let us know. We can just give you a free license quote so you can compare prices. And the other great benefit to licensing with a partner like XPM is as soon as you license with us, you have a long-term relationship with us. That means that when you have a problem or a question, you can call us and we'll basically know who you are, know what's going on with your instance, and be able to help you fairly quickly with, some light questions and stuff like that. So, all right, enough about us. We are now going to start getting to some actual more rubber hits the road details around the cloud migration and some things that you want to look out for and some things that you can do in the tool. And for that, I am going to turn it over to our one of our resident cloud migration experts, Jason Kidner, and he's going to take it from here.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Covered a lot of ground. We still got some more to go. So we're going to look at some benefits of moving to the cloud and also differences, and wrap up with the roadmap, what it looks like to move to the cloud and how XPM can help you with that. But first off, with benefits, there's a number of these to talk about. First, there's extensibility. That's a buzzword for Atlassian with the journey to the cloud. And what that means is there's just a lot more integrations available in the cloud. Some are only available in the cloud. Some are better in the cloud when it comes to integrations with other SaaS products and just tools that most companies users are using at least 3 to 4, if not more, tools, and so context switching is a big deal. And if you can have more of those integrations available very quickly in your tools from one to the other, that's really great. Helps your users out. So a lot of great extensibility options here. And for the cloud, especially Jira, there's also a mobile app that allows your users to go, to access their Jira issues with their phone as well. So, so the extensibility is a benefit. Licensing improvements is also another thing. Again, Steve mentioned we handle licensing for many clients working with Atlassian to sort those things out. And licensing is now much simpler on the cloud because all of your licenses fall under one umbrella, including any add-ons that you have. And it's very easy to upgrade for your various Atlassian products, to add applications mid-cycle. It's just licensing overall is much simpler. And then also when it comes to licensing, you might have noticed in the slide earlier about the different tiers for the cloud products, you do get some add-ons that were previously add-ons like advanced roadmaps. Those now fall under the premium and enterprise tiers, so you don't have to pay for those licenses. You also, Automation for Jira used to be an add-on. That's now been brought into the suite of cloud products as well. And gradually Atlassian's acquiring more and more apps that they're also integrating into their cloud products. Little by little. So you get that improvement where you don't have to have an add-on license. It's just part of your Jira or your Confluence base license. So there, and Steve also mentioned that Atlassian Access is also packaged with the enterprise tier pricing, which is a really great benefit for large organizations. Next benefit is reduced maintenance costs. So clearly, if you're not managing and having to manage a server or data center instance, you're going to be saving a lot of costs around, just for system admin costs. You're also going to be saving around hardware costs or potentially the hosting costs of using AWS or Azure. And Atlassian, let me kind of highlight this by going to another window here where Atlassian has this savings calculator out there now, and Steve can put this link in the chat, but this is kind of just an introduction of like, what can the cloud save you? So for instance, and you can choose various products and deployments out here. You can add various products. I've gone with a fairly just simple scenario of what if we have 1,000 users on Jira server and 1,000 users on Confluence server. And so once you put those products in, then you click estimate, and Atlassian does some number crunching, and they note what it would cost annually if you continue to self-manage, and your operational costs, obviously those costs around, you know, store or hosting, or, you know, using AWS, things like that, and also your licensing costs. So that is just compared to the cloud, where you just have your one Atlassian cloud subscription. Atlassian's doing all the grunt work behind the scenes, hosting it, managing it, all that sort of stuff. So you can see a cost savings here. And this really gets to, and then you can drill down into other cost savings around infrastructure, the licensing out here. This is really just set up for standard. A lot of our clients go to premium. And even if you switch to premium, the subscriptions are going to be higher, but you're still saving money, even at that higher tier. So this is a great calculator just to give an initial idea of what it would mean, whether you're deciding to switch to data center or to cloud. And XVM can certainly work with you, as other partners could, to sort out and get a very exact comparison on costs. So back to our other benefits. Some of these are benefits that you might not think of initially, but things like system and database cleanup. My family and I just moved house this summer, and part of the move was, you know, what are we going to take? What are we going to move? What are we not going to move? So we had to basically go through everything we owned and decide, do we want this? Do we still use this? Do we still need this? And then kind of answer those questions. And then we sold a lot of stuff. We donated a lot of things. So it was a motivation for cleanup. A migration is a move essentially, and it's a great time, great opportunity to look at your instances, look at all the configurations. Likely there's going to be a lot of things that you're not using anymore, and it's a great time to clean up things, especially permissions, users. We've seen Active Directories that are just a mess and need to be cleaned up, and so a lot of cleanup opportunity around these migrations that a lot of our clients are taking advantage of. Similarly, with governance, we talk about governance a lot when we engage with clients, and this is really just around how are you going to set up policies, who's going to be your team that's actually going to govern and make decisions, those important decisions around your tools. I mean, just switching from server to data center or to cloud is a massive decision process that really needs a team of people, large team of people, to make those decisions, which is a part of governance as well. So this could be a great opportunity if your organization doesn't have governance in place. It's a great time to, as you're switching to a cloud, it's a great time to think about that. Who are going to be your admins? What are your good policies going to be as you switch? So, and we talk about governance in Atlassian. We have a webinar around Atlassian governance. We also have some videos out on our YouTube channel, which we've posted in the chat as well, that you can certainly look at, and just to start to get a sense of how could you move forward with the governing of your Atlassian products. Then the last benefit here is again, something around like system cleanup, governance. It's just the idea that maybe you could start to shift away, just organizationally, you could start to be making some shifts. Possibly this migration coincides with an agile transformation. Or other transforming that you're trying to just get better, more efficient, less siloed within your organization around your work. So possibly you could realign around value streams. And as you're doing that, you could update your Jira projects and the way you do work, the way you're reporting work, all that sort of stuff. And switching value streams, doing agile transformations is a huge value for cost savings and efficiency as well. Just like you're going to save a lot of costs in journeying to the cloud as well. So that's just another thing to consider. We are working with clients that are migrating and also doing agile transformations kind of in the same general time frame. So, so that's something to think about. So next is differences. There are many, many differences between the server of Jira or Confluence or Jira Service Management compared to cloud. Atlassian is investing a lot of money into their cloud products. And one difference that comes up in every cloud migration we've done with the client is around marketplace apps. And as Steve mentioned earlier, the apps are going to be, there might not be the same apps available that your organization's using in the cloud compared to server or data center. So a big part of our migrations is discovery, is assessing each of the apps that you have on your self-managed Atlassian product. And a lot of the time involved in migration is figuring out, will this migrate? Will it not migrate? What are the steps to do it? Is it even available in the cloud? Or do you need to think about some other workaround or some other add-on or some customization that's needed to keep performing the same things you were used to in the server? So, and we're seeing with many clients, there are a lot of differences. Some things can be done in the cloud. Some things are just very different, especially moving to like Confluence Cloud. And we'll talk about some things like that later on. But there's definitely a big part of migrations is assessing apps and figuring out a way forward for your app needs into the cloud. Another difference is user and group management. This is a big difference for those of you who are Jira admins or Confluence admins. So to get to this, I want to actually show you into a cloud administration area. So there's a few differences. First off, the whole idea of your Jira, your administration of your Atlassian tools is changing in the cloud. So maybe you are a system admin or a Jira or Confluence admin on your server instance. When you come to the cloud, there's some new naming that you have to get used to. One is whoever creates your cloud instance is going to be called an org admin. You can add other people to be org admins, but they're going to have the ability to really manage everything, including the overall organization level options that you see here at the top. These get into using Atlassian Access, which again, most of the clients we've worked with have bought Atlassian Access because they needed single sign-on and SAML user provisioning, or sorry, user provisioning as well. So the org admins are going to be the ones to manage this on the Atlassian side. You also have what are called site admins, which allow you to see this user and group management area of the cloud. And you underneath one organization, you can have multiple sites. You can have multiple, federated instances out here under one organization. And all of those can be, all the users and groups for all those different instances can be managed together. So, and this covers Jira, Confluence, Jira Service Management. So it's different where you're seeing everything together in one place compared to server where you saw your Jira and your Confluence user management in different places. Your users, you can see out here, you can list them, you can drill into one of them and see and manage them very quickly out here. You can give them access to different products very seamlessly, manage some of their roles, see the groups they're in. It's very streamlined, and really they've put a lot of effort into this. You can also manage your groups out here. Again, these groups are going to cover both, in this case, my instance is pretty basic. It's just Jira and Confluence, and you can, control your groups. Again, if you're using Atlassian Access, you can sync groups from your Active Directory, which is really key for most organizations. And so you have group management out here. There's also a lot of stuff around product access where you can manage these via groups. And again, all your Atlassian cloud products are in one place here where you're managing the product access all in one place. So it really saves a lot of time and effort for your Jira admins around here. So a lot of changes with this. We go through that certainly when we engage with clients and help them to work this out so it'll work as well as it can given their migration needs. The other difference, let's go back to our slides. Another difference is just the UI and UX in Jira and Confluence. So just very briefly, there's a lot to talk about here, but just very briefly, jumping into another one of our cloud instances, the view screen in Jira Cloud is different. You can, those of you who are used to server data center, you'll see it straight away. This is very different, where you have some, your different fields are located in different places. If I drill into the full view screen here, and it renders here, you can see, yeah, just this is a big change for most users that come over. And it's really good to have like videos and training around some of these new UX UI features. So you have buttons in different places. Your workflow, you don't have workflow buttons anymore. You have this drop-down list to do your transitions. You can have a lot more control around your fields. Do they appear over here? Do they appear over here? So a lot of changes with this UX in Jira. A lot of this up top here is similar to server and data center, but there are other features around search bars. There's a your work area that's pretty nice as well. So a number of things with Jira, they're changing it more and more. Over in Confluence, let me jump over to Confluence as well here. Bear with me. Oh yeah, here it is. In Confluence, again, similar the UI to the Jira cloud, but in Confluence, when you go into a space, like I'll jump into my space, the cloud editor is very different in Confluence Cloud. When you migrate your Confluence pages over, you will still have access to a legacy editor on the cloud, but there are going to be some differences even with that and some of the background working. But when you create a new page in Confluence, you'll see straight away that it's very different from the editor that you're used to on server or data center. So your toolbar at the top is very different. The handling of tables, as just one example, or layouts, tables are very different. You don't have a whole table toolbar like you used to. Now you have it all streamlined inline as you're editing. So a lot of different features around this. And I'll mention a couple of things, again, related to differences later on, but some major differences with the Confluence editor. So kind of carry on here. Another difference in Jira Cloud, there are something known as team managed projects. I'm not actually going to show you those, but they provide the ability for your teams to manage your projects, to govern a given project, to create their own fields, to create workflow statuses. And those team managed projects are really kind of in a separate part of the database on your Jira instance that, again, doesn't really fall into your company managed projects and what a Jira admin would kind of manage and govern around fields and all your different screens and workflows. This gives more, it empowers teams to do things more on their own, but it does have the downside of it can, you're giving teams carte blanche to do whatever they want to do with their project, and it might get outside of your normal governance. So you have to decide whether you're going to let your organization, your teams even set up their own team managed projects. That's a big decision point in the cloud. The Jira work management projects, those are what used to be business projects. So when you come over to the cloud for those are quite different. And Atlassian's pouring a lot of, investing a lot into those. So if we go actually out to this instance again, I'll just give you a quick glance into what those look like, because the UI has changed a lot. They're much different. So here's one example of a classic, they still say classic business project, but they are a work management project. So they've updated a lot of the options in the menu bar. So you have a list option where you see your issues more in like an Excel spreadsheet sort of view where you can update fields in line here. Boards, there's a calendar feature. that's quite new, where you can see calendars and things around due dates. Out here, there's a timeline view. Again, that's similar to roadmaps, and some of the roadmaps they're starting to build into Jira software projects. So a number of other features out here for business teams to use, recognizing that not just software teams can really find value in using Jira, and a lot of great uses there. So Jira work management projects are very different in the cloud. Jira Automation. Atlassian acquired automation for Jira about a year ago. So it's still an add-on out there that they own that you could use in server or data center, but Jira Automation is now packaged in with your various cloud tiers. And when you go to Premium Enterprise, you essentially get unlimited rule executions. And we've found that many of our clients are greatly benefiting from Jira Automation. And I'll just quickly, again, it's just very much a teaser on some of these items, but they come in very handy. And you get to access automation from your project settings. So you can open it up to allow your project admins to do automation. It's not just a Jira admin feature anymore. So your Jira project admins can come to their project settings. They can choose automation. And then automation is centered around creating what are called rules. And I'm not going to go, again, in depth at all with these, just going to highlight that you can set up many rules. They can be for one project, they can be for multiple projects out here. Looks like I'm having some latency in rendering some of this stuff. So yeah, so you see them out here. You set up these rules, you give them a name, and the rules are very straightforward. Overall, you have a triggering event. You can have you can allow some events to take place on the issue that's triggered or on related issues. In this case, when all the subtasks of an issue are done, it's going to then move the parent issue, whatever that is, a story or bug. It's going to move that to the done workflow status. So you have various conditions, and then you have events that can take place within the database. So really powerful. A lot of cool options with that. You might not even need some of the add-ons you used to have in Server Data Center, and leverage automation in the background. So really nice. There's also, again, advanced roadmaps. This is now being packaged in now with Data Center, but it used to be an add-on for server. And now if you use advanced roadmaps in Server Data Center and you want to migrate to the cloud, you do need to get the premium or enterprise tiers. And I won't go into depth with advanced roadmaps, but it is available in premium and enterprise. And lastly, there are adjustments and challenges, certainly, with going to the cloud. Made mention of a couple of those, but just generally, the cloud base the code base for cloud and for server and data center are different, and they're diverging more and more. There's a different API in the cloud products versus the server data center products. So that does result in some limitations that you might have been used to in server data center, like various customizations. Some of those are not available. You can't do a lot of HTML in the background in Confluence Cloud like you could in server data center Confluence. There's also export limitations where you can only export up to 1,000 rows from your filter results within Jira Cloud. And then there's just, again, going back to the apps, given some of the differences, again, some of the apps they don't have a cloud version of certain apps, and you have to look at that with internally or with a Atlassian partner as well to think through options when you're migrating to the cloud. So with that, again, lots to think about, a lot of benefits, a lot of differences to work through as you make those decisions. So we're going to kind of wrap up our time. Steve's going to hand it back to Steve as he goes through the roadmap and what it looks like to do these migrations. So hand it back to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Jason. So great job going through some of those details. As you guys can see, there's a lot there. If you are going to be planning for a migration to cloud, you will want to have a partner to help navigate that with you. Your partner can do everything, you know, kind of be like all hands on deck for you, or they can just kind of provide co-pilot side coaching for you along the way, or anything in between. Okay, in the last few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual roadmap to a migration, including how XPM does work directly with customers and some of the frameworks that we use to help customers with that migration and make it go smoothly. So this slide here just kind of shows the different steps that you'll go through: assessment and a plan, and then a prep, and then you do some tests and migrate, and then a launch. This can shift a little bit depending on the type of migration you're doing, but these are the basic steps that you would go through in a roadmap around a cloud migration. All right, let's go to the next slide. So when you're doing a cloud migration, there are a couple of different ways you can do it. You can do a lift and shift, you can do an optimize and shift, you can do a project by project, or you could do what we like to call a manual, or wipe the deck and start over again. But when we work with customers, we actually like to do this thing where we use the Atlassian products for our Atlassian projects. So if we're doing a cloud migration with a customer, we are going to use advanced roadmaps to plan out that migration. Here's an example below of what some of that looks like, where you can see the migration phase for group 2 and the different steps that we kind of talked about in the previous slide. And each of these kind of high level actions will be tied to a score of tasks underneath that will be assigned to different teams in the migration process. Let's go to the next slide. Of course, continuing on that theme, we're going to track our work in Jira. So we use 3 main tools when managing a migration: the advanced roadmaps, and then the second tool is tracking work in Jira. As we are supporting the actions that we are trying to deliver in the roadmap, those will be defined by the scoping work and the action work, and all the items that each member of the team will be doing, depending on the size of your team. And all of that can be boarded on a Kanban board in Jira, so you can clearly see the visibility of where you are, how things are coming along, what's been blocked, who's assigned to things, and stuff like that. Really just using Atlassian's tools to their greatest advantage. Next slide. Okay, and then finally, Confluence is a fantastic tool for managing your artifacts, runbooks, dashboards, and all of the activities that are happening within the migration as well. So here's just 2 quick examples. This first top example is going to be a Confluence space where we are tracking all of the artifacts and activities around the migration. We might have a log of app assessments that we've done here. We might have a dashboard that defines some of the activities, deliverables, timelines, schedules for people, and things like that. Below here, we have a prod migration prep, which is going to be a prep process for the prod migration. Of course, you can see the Jira issues embedded within the table. This is the great feature that Confluence and Jira can do with the collaboration. And so throughout the migration, we have this fantastic dynamic tool set that we're using that is going to real-time identify the actions that are working on, real-time show you what percentage of the deliverables are completed, real-time show you what the results are of the different assessments that you have done, and so on and so forth. So I think that is our last slide of the presentation. Oh no, I'm gonna bring us back to here again, just as a kind of quick summary slide, back to where we started, and remind you guys of kind of the planning process around this cloud migration. Now, this is a great opportunity for me to speak to and announce a special event that XPM is doing in the beginning of October, and it's going to be for a limited number of attendees. But I want to bring it to your attention. So if you are interested in this or need something like this, you can reach out to us. What we're going to be doing is what we're calling a cloud migration workshop. And so what that is going to be is it's going to be a very tangible, hands-on, constructed workshop around all the elements that we've been talking about in this webinar. At the end of the workshop, you will have a book that you will have put together, a customized book for your migration that covers roadmap, that covers app assessment, that covers recommendations on cloud tiers, all of this kind of thing that you can put together and use internally to promote the process and timeline and funding for your cloud migration. That's going to be in the beginning of October. We do not have that event on our website yet. That will be on there soon. Like I said, it will be definitely limited seating. As you can tell by the material that we'll be covering, we have to limit that to a certain number of people. If that is something that you think is going to be valuable for you, if you're in the process of putting together budget for 2022 around cloud migration, if you think this is something you're going to be doing in 2022, by all means, reach out to Jason or I, and we will try to get you into that workshop that we're doing in October. All right, let's take us to the last slide. Speaking of getting a hold of us, this is our contact information: Steve Terolness at xpm.com, Jason.Kidner at xpm.com. To the right is going to be all of our upcoming webinars and classes that are coming up after today. Like I said, we do this webinar every week. It's not always on cloud migration. We have about 8 different webinars that we do on a rotating basis. That usually takes us about 2 months to get through it. And we usually find by the time we get to the end of that rotation, we are updating the first one again with a bunch of new information that we've done. But you can kind of see those webinars out there. Also, our classes are out there. Our Jira Bootcamp and our Confluence Bootcamp are our benchmark classes. These are industry top standard classes. The Jira Bootcamp class is a 3-day hands-on workshop-based class. By the time you come out of this class, you will not only be exhausted, but you will actually be able to build an entire project from scratch. Confluence Bootcamp is a 1-day class, but it is also a deep dive, hands-on workshop-based class. Just so you know, our webinars are very much presentation information based. Our classes are not. Our classes are all hands-on workshop based. So if you come to our class, you're not going to see a slide deck. You are going to be a user in a tool doing activities that are going to help you learn. That is the structure of our classes, and it produces a high level of retention coming out of those classes. All right. We have hit you guys with a lot of information today, so I appreciate you kind of grabbing on and holding on for the entire hour. Yeah, Jason.
Steve, there's one question. We got a question out here, and feel free to put questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, I was just going to grab Zoom questions. So
yeah, there's a question.
For the next few minutes.
Yeah, a question that came in about that we didn't mention Jira Align. Is Jira Align in scope for a full migration to Atlassian Cloud that includes Access?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is definitely yes. 99.9% of Jira Align customers are on cloud already. Atlassian does kind of have this on-site version of Jira Align, but nobody really uses it. Even if you are currently on-prem, either with server or with data center, your connection to Jira Align would be on cloud. So it's kind of already there. And if you migrate to the Jira Cloud instance, there's a fairly simple process for connecting that to the Jira Align Cloud instance as well. So that's kind of why we don't mention that. We actually do have some other webinars around managing your portfolio planning with Atlassian tools, and another webinar specifically around a Jira Align demo. So if you have more interest in that, check out those webinars. Any other questions? Okay. One question we get a lot is, where's the starting point on this? There's a lot of overwhelming stuff here. You did kind of see from some of the stuff we talked about that there needs to be an assessment up front. And like I mentioned, that workshop would be tremendously helpful to some people in doing that assessment. But regardless of where you are in your journey, really, if you need help, the first step is to reach out to us. We can quickly assess where you are, where you need to go. We can help you put a timeline together. Just connect with us and we'll help you out with that. Hey, we really appreciate everybody joining the call. We know that there's a lot of information and there's a lot of things drawing on your time and your attention right now, but we appreciate you joining us. We hope that this has been helpful to you, and we encourage you to reach out to us if you have any other questions after the call. Otherwise, thanks for joining us, and good luck to you in all of your Atlassian adventures.